The top stories tonight in Y News. Several members of the European Union Parliament met with Philippine senators to discuss issues on human rights, including the investigation of the International Criminal Court on the country's war on drugs.
The Department of National Defense of the Philippines and the Australian Defense Department agreed to have more defense cooperation.
A Senate panel seeks to probe a scheme where informants of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency allegedly receive illegal drugs as reward.
And U.S. President Joe Biden rallies NATO allies in a speech in Poland in front of Ukrainian refugees, proclaiming unwavering support for Kyiv.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, the 22nd of February, 2023. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media channels. I am Hardin Delgado.
First in the news, the Department of National Defense of the Philippines and the Australian Defense Department agreed to have more defense cooperation. DND Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said, aside from naval forces and air forces, they also reaffirmed the need to continue working together towards a common goal of maintaining a free, open, and secure Indo-Pacific.
Agreed to explore other possible areas of cooperation, while reaffirming that counterterrorism and maritime security remain as the core pillars of our nation's bilateral defense relations.
Australian Minister for Defence and Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles also said Australia will push for an Indo-Pacific endeavour with more naval components.
We are both countries which, as I said earlier, are committed to the maintenance of the global rules-based order. We're both countries who are deeply invested in asserting the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea throughout the world, but in places like the South China Sea.
North Korean ambassador to the Philippines, Kim In-chul, paid a courtesy call to the Department of Justice, or DOJ Secretary Remulla, on Wednesday, February 22. DOJ spokesperson, Assistant Secretary Vico Clavano, said In-chul congratulated the DOJ on the successful deportation of 4 Japanese fugitives recently. Clavano added they also talked about the request by the Korean government to deport 3 Korean nationals back to South Korea. The official request was sent by his consul general. Meanwhile, Remulla assured In-chul to look into the request immediately and give assistance if the request would warrant swift action.
Several members of the European Union or EU Parliament met with Philippine senators today to discuss issues on human rights, including the investigation of the International Criminal Court or ICC on the country's war on drugs. However, some senators seem to be irked with the inquiries of the international lawmakers. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
Several members of the European Union or EU Parliament support the investigation of the International Criminal Court or ICC on the controversial illegal drug war of the Duterte administration. The delegation expressed this following their meeting with members of the Philippine Senate Committee on Human Rights on Wednesday morning. Hannah Neumann, who sits as the vice chairperson of the EU Parliament Subcommittee on Human Rights, says during their meeting they expressed deep concern on the drug war killings during the Duterte administration. The EU Parliament believes the ICC would help in the investigation into the killings and speedy resolution of cases. Despite this, she says that they were relieved to hear that the government has been focusing on rehabilitation.
We, as the European Union, are a member of the Rome Statute. We support the ICC, and we see this as a potential to support the investigations into the killings. We clearly understand that at least the senators we met right now see this differently. Well, I mean, this is exactly part of the discussions that we're having amongst each other. But They are constructive and fruitful. That's how I would describe it.
However, Senator Ronald De La Rosa says he felt slighted when one of the parliament members allegedly questioned the filing of resolution by Senator Jinggoy Estrada opposing the resumption of ICC probe into the war on drugs of the Duterte administration.
Pinalabas ko lang yung sama ng loob ko. Human rights violations were committed by your people. Ngayon, you are going to lecture us about human rights? How dare you?
I would say it was not tense, but it was open and a critical discussion that in the end I think was more constructive than tense. The European Parliament has been quite clear that we were deeply concerned about the extrajudicial killings happening on the war on drugs.
Senator Francis Tolentino, who led the meeting, described the dialogue as fruitful. The senator says they were able to explain their stand against the ICC probe and that the EU Parliament delegation respects their view. When asked if the meeting would have an effect on the ICC investigation, Tolentino says,
Siguro merong konting implication sila kasi sila rin yun magre-report doon eh. Sila rin. They respect our views. But as to whether they will accept that within their own perspective, that's a different matter.
Tolentino adds trade relations between the Philippines and the EU were also discussed, including the extension of the Generalized Scheme of Preferences or GSP+. The EU Parliament delegation is expected to visit former Senator Laila de Lima at the PNP Custodial Center on Thursday. Jorge Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
A Senate panel is open to probe a scheme where informants of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA allegedly receive illegal drugs as reward. Senator Ronald De La Rosa, who chairs the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs, says he will call PDEA Director General Moro Virgilio Lazo to inquire on the issue before calling for an investigation. The senator expressed concern that the country's illegal drug problem will persist if the scheme is proven true. De La Rosa served as the first chief of the Philippine National Police who spearheaded the Oplantokhang of the Duterte administration.
Imbestigahan natin yan. Hindi po pwede yan. Ibig sabihin, para tayong dito, pabalik-balik ang problema.
Meanwhile, several lawmakers believe it is already necessary to repeal or amend the Act for Salt Iodization Nationwide or ASIN law. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Especially with over. They are important. Several salt farmers are in debt while others close down their salt beds. One of the salt farms in gov't, that is over 300 years old and have existed during the galleon trade, is already gone. This has been the norm since the implementation of the Republic Act No. 8172 in 1995 during the administration of former President Fidel Ramos. Under the said law, producers including local farmers are not allowed to sell non-iodized salt. According to lawmakers, this has to change.
What's the point of prohibiting them and then we allow importation of non-iodized salt, no? So ang nangyayari, gusto nating iodized lahat ang gamitin, even yung mga big food manufacturers, but we allow them to import non-iodized salt. Useless po yung prohibition na yon.
Meanwhile, there is also a need to preserve and improve the salt industry in the country. Experts say the industry has always been engraved in the culinary culture of the country. According to Jamel Chor, founder of the Philippine Culinary Heritage Movement, sea salt is one of the best gourmet salt in the world.
The artisanal method of Philippine sea salt production is akin to the production method of Flor de Sal in southern France and Flor de Sal in the coasts of Portugal. With the Philippine sea salt farms flourishing, tens of thousands more will be employed.
The House Committee on Health has moved to conduct a joint session with the Committee on Agriculture and Food to further discuss the proposed amendments. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A higher official of the Agriculture Department admits that he ordered the importation of sugar even prior to the sugar order released recently by the Sugar Regulatory Administration. This statement came after the expose of Senate Deputy Minority Leader Risa Hontiveros yesterday. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Urgency of the situation to address the inflation and to keep a buffer stock in the country pushed Department of Agriculture Senior Undersecretary Domingo Panganiban to proceed with the importation of sugar. The official noted that he interpreted the instruction of Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin as a sugar order. He then instructed the 3 importers to facilitate the importation even without the sugar order from the Sugar Regulatory Administration or SRA board.
The directive of the Executive Secretary to me was a manifestation that directive is already a sugar order.
SRA released the sugar order number 6 on February 15, but the 260-container van already arrived in Batangas in February 9. This was questioned by Senator Risa Hontiveros yesterday using the documents she gathered from her source. The lawmaker noted that based on the recent sugar order, the nearest arrival of the shipment should be on March 1. When reporters asked Yusek Panganiban if the president was aware of the issue, the official answered,
Yes, he was aware when the sugar arrived on February 9. He was properly informed that the sugar has already arrived.
Sugar order number 6 approved the importation of 440,000 metric tons of refined sugar. Senator Hontiveros already filed resolution to investigate the issue. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
In other news, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board announced the new deadline of franchise validity of the traditional jeepneys until June 30, 2023. Only those who will comply with the consolidation process may have the chance to extend their provisional authority until the end of the year. JP Nunez tells us why.
A jeepney operator in Quezon City expressed his frustration over joining cooperative, which is part of the consolidation under Public Utility Vehicle Modernization Program. Ray Escanilla said he cannot afford membership fee, which prevents him to join a cooperative.
Saan po kami kukuha ng 50,000? Lalo naman ngayon, hindi naman kalakasan. Kahit sabihin natin normal na, pero mahina pa rin yung pasada. Kasi lalo na maiksi lang yung ruta namin, minimum fare lang kami. Gusto yun man po namin pumasok pero wala po kami magagawa kasi wala naman po kami pambayad sa co-op eh. Siguro wala na lang magagawa, talagang mawawala na yung prangkisa namin.
In the latest statement of the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board or LTFRB, the validity of the franchise of traditional jeepney operators will only last until June 30 this year. Only those who will join a cooperative before or on June 30 will have a chance to extend provisional authority until December 31, 2023. It was the 4th time that the regulatory board extended the franchise validity of traditional jeepneys since the implementation of PUV modernization program in 2017. For the Transport Group Alliance of Concerned Transport Organizations or ACTO, they will encourage their member to comply with the industry consolidation set until June 30. ACTO National President Liberty De Luna explains that it would be better for their members to comply with the program than to lose livelihood with the looming jeepney phase-out.
Makatotohanan at ganun din po, mawawalan po sila ng hanap buhay. Pwede naman po kami sumunod at mag-comply sa mga hinihingi nila. Kapag naman nakapag-consolidate naman po kami, tuloy-tuloy naman po yung pagbiyahe.
Meanwhile, for the Transport Group Piston, the PUVMP should be stopped and revised amid the announcement of the Regulatory Board of the new phase-out deadline. Its national president, Modi Floranda, believes that the program is a failure as small operators cannot afford the new modernized jeepney costing at least 2.4 to 2.8 million pesos. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for our news abroad, U.S. President Joe Biden made a speech in Poland in front of Ukrainian refugees, stating that the U.S. remains in Ukraine's back on their ongoing war with Russia. Meanwhile, Russian president submitted a draft to suspend their participation in the nuclear arms treaty with the United States. Joselito Liquido will tell us the details live. Yes, Joselito, go ahead.
Good evening, Mariel. United States President Joe Biden delivered a speech in the presidential palace in Warsaw, Poland, in front of Polish citizens and Ukrainian refugees, reiterating the U.S. and its allies' support for Ukraine, stating that they will always have the country's back. The day before, the president had an unannounced trip to Kiev, where he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Biden also met with Polish President Andrzej Duda as he began a series of discussions with allies on how to move forward as the Russian invasion of Ukraine enters its second year with no sign of ending in the near future. Polish President Duda praised the U.S. president with his visit to Kiev, stating that it shows the U.S. commitment in maintaining security in Europe, adding that the move raised the morale of Ukraine defenders significantly. Meanwhile, later on the same day as President Biden's speech, Russian President Vladimir Putin also made an important announcement that they plan to suspend its participation on the Nuclear Arms Control Pact with the United States, the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or the so-called New START. The New START Arms Treaty limits its country's use of missiles that carry atomic weapons and puts a cap on the number of nuclear warheads they can deploy. A draft law was submitted by the Russian president to Duma, Russia's lower house parliament. Duma Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin later stated that they will consider the draft on Wednesday and will take immediate action. Meanwhile, Russia defended the move to suspend the treaty as they blamed the United States, accusing Washington of not complying with its provisions and continuously undermining Russia's national security. Mariel?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, for that live report. In South America, the recent landslide in Brazil, caused by an extreme amount of rain, has now claimed 44 lives in the country's capital, Sao Paulo, where many of the victims were children. Brazil's average annual rainfall record is between 1,000 to 1,500 millimeters. However, 600 to 680 millimeters of rain has hit the municipality of Bertioga just in the span of 24 hours. 43 out of the 44 deaths have been recorded in São Sebastião, 80 kilometers away from Bertioga, while 40 people are still reported as missing. Some roads still remain impassable as some residents continue to take shelter. An assessment of the extent of the damage is underway. In Mexico, a 54-year-old former public security minister, Genaro Garcia Luna, has now been sentenced with minimum 20 years imprisonment for accepting millions of dollars of drug money from Sinaloa drug cartel, Mexico's largest crime syndicate, and for engaging in continuing criminal activities. The verdict was handed by the U.S. District Court in Brooklyn, New York, after 4 weeks of trial and a 3-day jury deliberation. Luna, during his term in Mexico, was involved in the country's drug crackdown operations and is now said to be the highest Mexican-ranking official to have been tried in the United States. Mexican government has expressed its commendation pertaining on the U.S. court decision. We'll share more global stories with you later, but for now, back to you, Harleen. Thank you, Marielle. For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. seeks to provide more fund and rationalize functions in local government units. The president gave his commitment as local leaders gather in Metro Manila today. Asher Cadapan Jr. details why.
The initiatives of local government units should be given a chance as they know best what the issues and solutions are in their respective jurisdictions. But as they are allowed to execute their projects, corresponding funds should also be provided to them. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. explains this as he seeks to review Executive Order 138 defining different functions of both the national and local governments. The President shared his intentions for the local governments in front of almost all mayors across the country during the League of Municipalities of the Philippines 2023 General Assembly.
Kaya tama yung naging inyong manifesto na sinasabi dapat ipaglapit ang national at saka local government. Kaya para sa akin, lalakihan talaga natin ang role ng local government sa lahat ng pagplano, sa lahat ng mga iniisip ng national government.
The chief executive also identifies some functions designated to local governments that should be dealt in a national level and vice versa. But to allow local government projects to be realized, President Marcos also plans to study the sharing of funds between the national government and LGUs as detailed in the said EO. This includes mandated appropriations which exhausts the fund that may be used for local initiatives.
We are going to rationalize the functions because para sa akin, for example, yung mga pinaplanong programa na national program, hindi naman maaari gagawa tayo. Halimbawa, we will do housing. Sasabihin natin, bigay mo na lang sa housing ng local government. O yung sa school building, repair and building of school building. Ibibigay sa local government. Sabi ko, bigyan mo, kayang-kaya ng local government magtayo ng eskwela. Pero bigyan nyo ng pondo. Kung walang pondo, wala kayong magagawa.
Having been a local leader, President Marcos assures the municipal chiefs that the palace hears their concerns and vows to provide aid for economic growth and transformation. Asher Cadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Sandigan Bayan has dismissed an ill-gotten wealth case against former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. and several others. The case alleges the late Marcos, his wife Imelda, and several others of securing loans from state-run financial institutions in favor of companies they control. In a 156-page decision, the Sandigan Bayan 5th Division junked Civil Case 0024 due to the failure of government prosecutors to present sufficient evidence. Based on the ruling, the state prosecutors also relied on the testimony of Rolando Gapud, which the court concluded as hearsay after he did not take the witness stand. Civil Case 0024 is one of the ill-gotten wealth cases filed against the Marcoses after the 1986 EDSA revolution.
A farmers group is dismayed on the international trade agreement that was ratified by the Senate. The Department of Agriculture said that they will intensify programs to make local production competitive. Ray Palayo will tell us why.
Lowering the cost of production is one of the projects aligned with the program of the Department of Agriculture or DA, according to Agriculture spokesperson Assistant Secretary Cristina Evangelista. The official noted that they will provide more assistance to farmers, including grants and food mobilization under the Kadiwa program. Protection of farmers is the agency's priority, she added.
We will always protect the interests of our farmers, kaya po papalakasin natin yung mga programa katulad ng Enhanced Kadiwa Grant, yung Kadiwa Food Mobilization, because again, this goes back to helping them become more competitive, knowing na merong mga produktong mas mura kaysa doon sa kanilang mga itinanim, then we will find a way to have interventions to bring down the price points to make it more appealing to more consumers.
This is the DA's direction after the Senate ratified the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP. It means that the free trade agreement is now activated with 9 countries that are members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN and neighboring countries including Japan, South Korea, China, Australia, and New Zealand. Selected products tariff will be reduced or lowered to 0. The Federation of Free Farmers worries about the impact that it may cause on the country's agriculture. They said that the local production is not yet ready to compete and we will just be dominated by other countries. The RCEP cannot also assure that other sensitive products like onion and rice will not be affected.
So pag hindi ka price competitive, mataas ang production cost mo, talo ka.
Even the border is not also ready if the volume of imported products will be increased.
Pag hindi tayo mag-iingat, pagpasok mo ng mga container vans ng mga karne, hindi tayo nakaka-check, lahat ng papasok mo dyan, ligtas po sa sakit.
Farmers Group is asking President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to allow them to personally present their position on RCEP and how it would affect the agriculture in the country. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
A special oversight panel has been formed in the Senate to monitor and review the implementation of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP agreement. This as the Philippines officially joins the agreement, dubbed as the largest free trade agreement in the world after the Senate concurred the RCEP ratification. The committee will be composed of 10 members with Senate President pro tempore Loren Legarda as the chairperson. Last night, 20 senators voted in favor of the agreement. The Constitution requires 2/3 of all the members of the Senate, or 16 votes, to concur to any treaty or international agreement before it can be valid and effective. Only Senate Deputy Minority Leader Risa Ontiveros voted against the measure, while presidential sister Senator Amy Marcos abstained from voting. In explaining their votes, the two senators raised concerns on the potential negative effects of the agreement to various industries in the country, including the agriculture and garment sectors.
The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, welcomes the formal approval of the country's participation in Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP agreement. According to Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman, the partnership will benefit the Filipino people by providing opportunities for economic outcomes and growth of the country. Pangandaman also thanked the senators who voted for the ratification of the partnership, as yesterday 20 senators voted to ratify the trade agreement, while one voted for dissenting vote and one for abstention.
A lawmaker has filed a bill in the House of Representatives that aims to interoperate instant messaging apps like Viber and Facebook Messenger. Bernadette Tinoy will tell us why.
Bataan 2nd District Representative Albert Garcia proposed a House Bill 6344 or Instant Messaging Applications Interoperability Act that aims faster connection between instant messaging applications. The bill, for an instance, will let a Viber app user to send messages to other instant messaging apps like Facebook Messenger without changing the account user.
This bill seeks to require the instant messaging service providers to enable interoperability for non-compliance thereof.
Quality Management Officer Catherine Yetan and her co-worker Patricia Havid, an operations assistant, have been using Viber messaging app for work-related communication. She told that sometimes they use Facebook Messenger app for workers who were not available on Viber. Yetan said that the Viber application has an end-to-end encryption that privatizes the conversations between users.
Yung security po kasi ng Viber is end-to-end encryption, bale mas private yung conversations kapag sa Viber. Siyempre, yung work namin is confidential and all of that. So, kailangan yung communication namin is secured.
Patricia said once the bill is passed into law, there will be a faster communication in terms of sending work files and data.
Mas mapapabilis yung communication mo sa isang tao kapag may gusto ka isend ng mga files or data.
Maganda kasi isahan na lang yung communication, bale centralized na siya. So halimbawa yung mga walang account sa Viber, message na rin namin siya since centralized na nga siya.
Meanwhile, Rakuten Viber Senior Director Pelig Bahar said that the interoperability between instant messaging apps may be challenged for them. He added that Viber has end-to-end encryption, and if Viber were interoperate with Facebook Messenger, the app's features may be compromised.
Viber is a very secure app with end-to-end encryption and other layers of security. Data sharing. So, for example, once we send a message, we show the user when it was delivered and when it was seen by the other party. So this is some of the data we will need to exchange now between the parties to actually continue to provide the services we currently give to our users. So we wouldn't want this act to diminish the current user experience in Viber.
Bernadette Tino, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Bureau of Immigration said a recommendation has been made for the creation of a one-stop shop for the processing of special chartered flights following the issue on a chartered plane which was tagged for human smuggling. Janice and Hente will tell us why.
To harmonize the procedures of different government agencies at the airport, the Bureau of Immigration said that various agencies headed by the Department of Transportation or DOTR eyes establish a one-stop shop that will process special chartered flights. BI spokesperson Dana Sandoval said the agency welcomes the creation of one-stop shop to prevent irregularities on the process of special chartered flights.
Nakita po natin dun sa recent issue na parang kanya-kanya po ang mga procedures, kaya po nagkakaroon ng confusion siguro na matatawag doon po sa which agency is in charge of certain permits or clearances na binibigay po for each part of that travel.
Meanwhile, Sandoval said that the agency sees no irregularities with the screening of chartered flight at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA on February 13. She added that the immigration officer responsible for the incident has assured that he had duly processed the travel documents of 10 passengers and 3 flight crew.
And all of them po were duly processed. Tiningnan po isa-isa kung meron po silang derogatory record, meron po silang Interpol hit, and wala naman po so far na nakita na records nung 10 yon. So they were processed po according to the policies po of the Bureau of Immigration.
The PNP Aviation Security Group initially insisted that there was 1 passenger on board the said aircraft, wherein only 6 had clearance but 7 were recorded in the General Declaration form. Sandoval explained that the immigration officers follow the protocols for inclusion of additional names in the declaration forms of private flights.
Yun naman pong last-minute add-on doon po sa General Declaration form has been duly processed by the immigration officer and included din po ito doon sa kanyang post-activity report.
Janice and Hente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Almost 3,000 employees across 60 companies took part in the world's biggest trial of a 4-day working week, and people are loving it. Charis Longbowen will tell us why live. Yes, Charis, good evening.
Good evening, Marielle. The 6-month experiment conducted in Britain between June and December of last year found that the shortened work weeks reduced the rates of stress, fatigue, burnout, and sleeping problems in employees. The study was organized by nonprofit group 4-Day Week Global in partnership with the think tank Autonomy, the University of Cambridge, and Boston College. During the trial, employees retained the same salary while working 1 day less per week. The findings are steady across companies of varying sizes, which showed that productivity was not affected, with revenues rising 1.4% on average. The experiment also found that hiring increased while absenteeism dropped. The number of staff resignations also fell sharply during this period, with people finding it a reward to have 3-day weekends instead of 2. More than 9 out of 10 firms will continue with a shortened work week permanently or plan to do so in the future, while only 4% will not extend it. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Charis Longbowen, reporting live. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Maria Latoza, reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, reported on Wednesday, February 22, that the search and rescue operation to reach the wreckage site of the Cessna 340 aircraft in Albay has been continued today. In a statement, CAAP said that as of 3 p.m. today, the first team of responders have reached 300 meters from the wreckage site. According to CAAP, once the wreckage site has been reached and the passengers have been identified, they will be airlifted to an undisclosed area for further medical assistance.
Our kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Job, chapter 28, verse 28, it says, "And unto man he said, Behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding." And those are the reasons behind the news, February 22, 2023. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Harley Delgado.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.